Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza and Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hi everyone, it's Holly. Welcome back to the Biz Birthday Bash podcast. I'm here with Elisabeth.
Hi. It's me.
I thought it would be fun to have me introduce this episode for you guys because it's going to be my last one, maybe.
Yeah, we think at this point, this is Holly's last episode. And I told her, I said, we have to have you introduce at least one episode of the podcast before your time with us comes to a close. So I kind of made her a little uncomfortable. I was like, you got it. You have to try. You have to do it. I think you did great.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll let you tell everyone what we're talking about today too.
Yes. So we are talking about transitioning away from wedding invitations. This is a little scary of a topic, and I feel like it's a long time coming, but I wanted to hear from Elisabeth about her journey away from wedding invitations and like what led her to making that leap. And she's got a good story for you, so we're really excited to share it. And yes. Go, Elisabeth. Yes. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. We have a couple of you have approached me, whether it's in the Facebook group or we actually have a Q&A that I'm going to read in a moment here where people have asked me about this specifically. And it would also be fun to maybe do a similar episode or maybe just like a Q&A where Cami talks about it too, because she's kind of done some of that journey. But I have definitely gone very far down that road at this point. Invitations are like very much in the rear view mirror. That doesn't mean if there was a freaking amazing, stunning Corvette driving up beside me that I wanted to take, I could. But, it is kind of in the rear view mirror at this point. I'm looking forward. It's not necessarily a goal anymore. But to start with this question, Laria.letters wrote us and said, "Hey guys, longtime listener. I would love to hear an episode or a little blurb." Oh, you're getting a whole episode. About Elisabeth's transition away from stationery. I know it's been mentioned in some episodes, but would love to hear the whole story. Oh man, guys, it is kind of a story. It's hard for me to not like give the whole like history of my business to talk about why I ended up kind of making this decision. But I will say that at the beginning, when I started my business, I was very much in the mindset of like, I'm going to do this for 5 years before I decide one way or the other, because statistically it takes about 5 years for people to get their footing with a business, to get good traction, to have clients consistently. I think that's one of the stats that's kind of out there. So that's what I had kind of always told myself in the back of my head. I need to put 5 years of effort into this, weddings and then invitations, etc. before I would
idea
pivot.
That you did that. That's such a cool way of looking at your business because of that statistic. Like after 5 years, most businesses fail. But I love that you gave yourself that space and that grace to say, well, 5 years, like that's it. That's all I get. And then I can make a decision one way or another.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's what I get. And that's what I have to make it to. So I was like, I don't want to give up or change my mind before I reach that mark. Things happened, AKA the pandemic, that would have sped this up for me a little quicker than what it originally probably would have been, because I was putting so many things into place at the time to try to get myself to the next level. So I wrote this little status by my name that says pretty much done with invites. Like that's the status I am at along this
that's
timeline.
Your business stat.
And, ElizaAnn.com is still up. It's still live. I get people who inquire every once in a while. I don't have a plan for taking that down at this time. I don't know what that'll look like in the future. But to kind of go back a little bit, I launched my brand spanking new website in April 2020. Basically the
painful.
worst time that you could do it. That was the time when we all thought like this thing's going to last for another month and we'll be done.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I still had a pretty like upbeat and positive viewpoint around that time because, you know, when I talked with Catherine of Crumb Brands, who helped me do my website and my launch and everything, there wasn't really any choice at that point but to move forward. I wasn't going to hold on to it and wait and kind of see what had happened. And it's funny, I have ways to measure now that what I was doing at the time worked. We can come back to some of that information later, like if I had continued to stick with it through COVID.
Yeah.
But I basically got when we got to that point and all the shutdowns were happening and I launched my website in April, the clients that I had at that time were either postponing to later that year or to 2021. And I was lucky, what I guess I would consider lucky in hindsight, because I didn't have a ton of spring clients. So I wasn't dealing with the nightmare that a lot of other stationers were, which was how are we supposed to take all these people that were having weddings in the next month or 2 months and walk everything back and reschedule it all and go through that whole hoopla. So I wasn't caught up in all of that craziness because it just so happened that I didn't have clients booked for that season. I was starting to get really, really picky. Like I was starting to get really niche. So I was only taking on people that I really wanted. And so part of that space being open on my calendar was because of that and this brand pivot and the new site and everything was building up to that point.
Well, it seems like it was kind of working out a little bit for that. At least it wasn't, you had so many clients and you were just drowning and then suddenly the pandemic happened and oh no, like what do I do?
Yes, exactly. So because I wasn't thrown into this pivot mode and making digital invitations and reprinting things for free and so many of the things that other stationers had to go through, I was actually able to take the time to ask myself a pretty important question. Am I doing this because I want to do it? Or am I doing this because I saw other people making pretty things and I thought to myself, I can do that too? Which it's not really a fun question to have to ask yourself. And then also kind of to summarize, basically just where did my desire for this originally come from? Like, was it my idea or was it someone else's? You know?
That's a good way of phrasing it. Like, did you see other people making pretty things? And you were like, I like that. I can do that too.
Like, come on, it's tempting. We all do that every single day. And I think we would be lying if we said that we didn't, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that gave me the space to think about it. And then moving forward, I've had a horrible summer. I mean, most of us did. Some people, 2020 worked out for some people, and I am so happy for them, honestly. It slowed down enough that they were able to think through things and restructure their businesses. And for me, my business, quite frankly, it just stopped. And I got to a point where I basically told Will, I said, I don't want to think about this anymore. There's nothing for me to think about right now. There's nothing to look forward to. That was the worst part of it all.
No.
From a mental health standpoint. Like all of us were going through that. You know how I told Will a lot at the time because I was going to therapy and stuff too. For the most part, anytime you go through anything in life, any sort of big change, anything that's traumatic, there's someone who can mentor you, someone who can guide you, someone who has experienced it themselves. No one had experienced a pandemic like this. No one. So it's like my own therapist wasn't able to help me because no one could even help themselves.
It's like, true.
And your brain, quite honestly, there's so much of the human brain that begins to like falter and almost like fall apart when you feel like you can't plan for the future because you just don't know what's happening and what things are going to look like. So I set everything to the side. I was like, I don't even want to think about this. I'm going to go pick up some work at Publix.
Not a bad place to get some work, obviously.
Yes.
Like cakes, subs.
I know, a pub sub, as my friend Rebecca would say. Rebecca, if you're listening, I know what that means now. Even though I've been in the South for like 7 years, she said pub sub to me, and I looked at her like she was
you were
insane.
Like, what?
And she was like, a pub sub. I'm like, what?
I still don't get it. Saying it slower won't help.
A pub sub. Yeah, I was like, I still don't get it. And I, quite honestly, I think I just wanted somebody else in my life telling me what to do. I just needed that at that time. And that was also when I kind of had my initial conversations with Britt in July of that year about, she had questions for me about doing an online course because we had all done the summit, and she knew that I helped kind of spearhead a lot of that in systems on the back end. Mm-hmm. And so once we had that conversation, that did give me something to look forward to and help her with, because I was like, well, I'm not doing weddings right now, So then I started finally dipping my toes in other things, because I really told myself when COVID hit, I'm going to wait this out. I was like, that was my mentality. I was like, everyone else is pivoting. Yeah. I'm just going to wait. Well, okay. We all know how that worked out, because it's like just now, 2 years later, it feels like things are lifting consistently a little more, like across the country.
Yeah.
Travel is resuming. Spring break, I was just at the airport. It was insane.
Oh, God.
I told Will, I was like, I don't miss COVID, but I do miss COVID traffic, because it's nuts. So then, eventually things start picking up a little bit in the fall, enough that people are feeling comfortable to have some more weddings consistently in 2021. So I did have to finish some of those 2020 suites in 2021. And it was like just my entire attitude had changed about it.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of resentment. I didn't feel a lot of enjoyment. Obviously, we're still dealing with supply shortages to this day, but that being an element on top of everything else was kind of even more reason for me to kind of say, like, I just can't deal. I don't want to deal. I can't deal with it. And people have asked me before, like, well, is this burnout? Like what you're explaining, like, were you burned out? And I was like, I didn't have an opportunity to be burned out, because I didn't have like that work. It was actually after taking a step back for so long that it's just that my heart wasn't in it anymore. It was like I just had an attitude change. It wasn't that I was burnt out.
Yeah.
So the only thing, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like 2020 was like a mirror into your soul. And like you realized looking into that mirror that you were like, this is not what I want anything to look like in my life. And it can definitely manifest as like depression or, something like that, like burnout, but it's not. It's like you said, it's an attitude shift, and it can change your whole life. Some big event like that.
Yep, exactly.
Because how long would have you been going on just doing invitations? Just going through the motions if 2020 hadn't happened?
Probably another few years.
Yeah.
I had so many things set up at the time. I was networking like nobody's business, because that was also when I had decided, which, didn't last long, because once the shutdowns happened, I re-downloaded Instagram. But I didn't have any of that. I didn't have that on my phone at the beginning of the year, because my goal was to make everything like face to face, like word of mouth, people oriented. Like I had a whole strategy that I just couldn't put into practice anymore. And maybe that contributed too, right? Of like my strategy that I wanted to use is no longer a viable strategy. And I'm not interested in reworking more on social media and reworking it. Yeah. So last summer, I would say that like only project that I really had so much enjoyment from was my brother's wedding invitation. So those were letterpressed. And like, I know that we always say don't work with family, but you also know in your gut what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay. And this was the perfect situation. I mean, the girl he married and her family, they're all wonderful. And I had pretty much full creative control, because like her mom was like, you just give me the ideas and I'll just be like, yay, it's good.
Oh, I love that.
So I had so much fun. And I think that was almost a great way, a kind of a great way for me to end it in a way. And what it also made me realize is the reality of this industry is that it makes it very hard. You have to be at a certain level with a certain type of client, with certain relationships to have full creative control over projects. I just didn't want to take people's crap anymore. Like, I didn't want to take their feedback. I didn't want to take their input. That was exhausting to me. It was annoying. And then it was like, well, I know that my heart's not in this from a service standpoint, because from a service standpoint, the right thing to do is to give your client what they're asking for within reason.
Yeah.
So then we kind of reached like the ultimate, what I would say was the moment that, you know, I had already been asking myself some of these questions, but the moment where I realized it was the clients who fired me, which like Holly and I joke all the time, like, because Holly knows who these people are. And I didn't care. Like, I didn't care that they fired me. And apathy, I think, is sometimes the biggest indicator, like not even burnout, like apathy. And a lot of people talk about that. Like when you get divorced, right? It's like, it's not that you're fighting a lot. It's actually that you're not fighting anymore at all, because neither of you're not emotionally involved. And it was exactly the same way with this. Like I did not bat an eye when they sent me that email. I was like, oh, well, that's a bummer, or, you know, bye. Here's your money back.
Whereas maybe like a couple of years ago, you would have like called somebody up and like cried about it. Or like, I was so upset when they did this. What can I do to fix it? And like this time you just were not like, you were just like, okay, that's fine. Go find somebody else who will help you. Thanks so much.
Like more props to you. Best of luck. And I knew in my core that I wasn't serving them at the level I should have been, that I wasn't like the right fit for what they needed. So that was the really big aha moment that I was like, okay, I'm no longer at this point actively pursuing really at all when people inquire with me or trying to make connections. And I'm going to forward, you know, I had my short list. I'm going to forward my inquiries to people who are on my short list, people who I think would be a good fit. I just didn't even have the desire at all. And I think, was it earlier this year in the fall? Like I did have an inquiry come through that was very interesting to me and would have been very, very expensive. And then they went another direction. But I also didn't feel like a huge loss from that. I was like, that would have been fun if they had picked me, but I wasn't like dying to have it, you know, like I have to have this for my business to survive. It just wasn't like that anymore. And, you know, I can thank you guys, truly, all of you who participate in Biz Birthday Bash and buy our membership and buy our products. Like, you guys have given me the flexibility to pursue other options, because everyone who buys something from Cami and I, that provides us another income stream. It allowed us to diversify. It allows me to get a consistent monthly paycheck, which is so cool, to share all of my crazy things with you guys. And so thank you, like truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because I didn't feel like I had to. And that was really a game changer for me. Some of the other things, some of the not as much of a fun thing, is that I started to just like develop some overall like beef with the wedding industry and some of the people in it. And as I climbed the rungs to try to achieve luxury, I kept asking myself, can I really perform at this level? And do I want to perform at this level? Do I want to apply myself this way? Because it truly takes a different mindset to be working at that scale with those people in those weddings, when there's more and more and more money, there's more at stake.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't really think that's what I want. So I had also joined, this was just another thing that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. I had joined a wedding networking group that's based kind of in the Southeast, but there might be people in other parts of the country who are in it too, which I think is really, really great for people who do want to be in the wedding industry and try to get into the luxury group. It's called E3. It's like encourage, elevate, and there's one more E word I couldn't tell you. And that also was just another moment that was like, I was kind of like, I don't want to be here. It's not that you guys are like being mean to me. It's just, it wasn't that at all. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be here. Like, these aren't my people. I know, I was like, these aren't my people. This isn't what I kind of joined because there are some local creatives that I think I had like a little bit of FOMO. So I joined, and then I was like, I don't really want to do this. I did that for 6 months or whatever. So
yeah,
to kind of come full circle, that's mostly the story. It definitely would have been too long to do in a Q and Cake episode because that took up like 20 minutes. But to come full circle, like I said, my website is still up and running. I don't have any plans at the moment to take that down or stop that from being up because I love being able to send out my inquiries to other people. In a way, that's a way for me to pay it forward by leaving that avenue open to send it to other people in the industry if people do happen to come my way. So yeah. And then I feel like there might have been one other thing that I was thinking of. Oh, I had said earlier that I know that what I was doing is paying off.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Because I had been doing so much networking and like phone calls and meeting people in person. There's a wedding planner who I had spoken to like pre-COVID, based out in Utah, who does all destination weddings. And she did come back to me. She came back to me at a certain point to ask like, hey, can you do this wedding for me? And I said, like, I'm so sorry. I'm not taking people on right now, but here's the name of someone great. It's my friend Rebecca of Rebecca Nicole Inc. And Rebecca has had more clients than I can count from that planner now.
Nice.
and it's amazing because she serves them so well and quite honestly is much better of a fit in the long run than I think I ever would have been. She's also like more flexible and just like service minded than me. Probably a lot nicer than me, at least like me and my like own brain sometimes. And so I'm so happy that worked out the way that it did. But it kind of goes back to a rule that I have heard people talk about in the wedding industry. All the work you're doing right now, that you're working for really hard right now, you're going to see the rewards for that in 18 months. And that's a long time to wait, but it's true because that's almost exactly about the time that came back around for me again.
That is so true. Words to live by right there.
Yep. And I was like, I don't want to wait anymore.
Cue the Dawson's Creek theme song.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of like, that is my story all in one place because yes, she's definitely right. That she has heard that Laria, who asked the question, has heard this hinted at in different episodes, but I've never talked about it like all in one. So now everyone has a cohesive picture.
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but what does the future look like for your business? Are you staying Eliza and Calligraphy? Are you changing to something else? What does the whole picture look like for everything?
Well, the whole picture for me for a long time has been to run my business without social media. And it's still going in that direction. So even though I still exist out there as Eliza and Calligraphy, I mean, I lurk on Instagram on my desktop, but I don't contribute anything to it more. I still have really wonderful creative connections in the industry. And like Biz Birthday Bash still has its page and everything like that. So the goal is, of course, to continue to do more Biz Birthday Bash, to take on maybe another course client if the right thing comes my way. I've also been holding on to that very lightly, but I have helped 3 people with their courses now. Britt of Swellcrest, Natalia of Papel & Co., and Kaylee from Mulberry Market Designs. Kaleberry.
I love it.
From Mulberry Market Designs, and had just a fantastic time every time I got to create one of those. But yeah, holding on to that lightly. And then I've also been doing what I've realized so much through Biz Birthday Bash is that I truly have a heart for helping others. And I like being on behind the scenes. Like sometimes I kind of like being the wallflower. I like not being the one in charge. I like contributing in a team setting. And so that has lent itself really well to an opportunity that I have said no to for a really long time now, that I finally said yes to do some independent contracting for another stationer in the industry. And I am loving it. I'm really, really loving it. It gives me some extra structure to my days. And then when my days are full, I feel more, I don't know, I have more energy. I feel more creative. So then it gives me more ideas for Biz Birthday Bash and things we can do for you guys. But Will and I like to say that I am also in the process of waiting for my next Harvest Festival idea. For any of you like Parks and Rec people out there, like Leslie did the Harvest Festival and it was like a really, really big deal, like a big shebang. And that's kind of how I felt, especially when Cammie and I did the Stationer Summit. It's like you did something so huge. How could I ever accomplish that again? Have my next Harvest Festival. So that's what Will loves telling people, which is like the cutest thing of like, and
that
he says
adorable.
it to me all the time, which is the sweetest. He's like, I know, he said, I know you'll come up with your next Harvest Festival. I know that idea will come to you. But in this season, I'm just very like, I'm so thankful to say that I feel so content and so happy with where I am. I feel like I've been able to take a little bit, I don't know, I feel like I've been able to like sit down and be like, you know what? I don't have to hustle in this season. This isn't the season for hustling.
Yeah.
This isn't where I am in my life. This is the season for me to, I don't know, finally be part of a team again, to be maybe on the clock for someone else a little bit, but also still be able to grow my own things. So it's a really exciting time for me. It's a good season for me, I think.
It's like a little reset button.
Yeah.
It's like kind of getting back to basics, but with all the knowledge that you've gained over the last 7-8 years. So you can kind of approach this season a little bit differently than if you hadn't had your own business, Eliza Ann Calligraphy for so long. Now you can apply those lessons in a different way.
Yes, exactly. And it's so exciting for me to be doing design work again, but not be the person who's like on the line for this client and the project,
Yes.
Because I'm like, like working on so-and-so's invitation today. I have no idea who they are. I've never spoken to them directly, because another person in the business, that's her job. But it's really fun to, I don't know, like be on Slack and be on Asana and be like, I'm part of a team. Like I have like coworkers. This is so crazy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that would be so lovely to have again.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And for my mental health, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So it's been really good. But Holly, I also want to talk to you to kind of like also have another perspective on what's happening when you think about not that you would transition away fully, but when the balance in your business changes. Especially with products. So now it's your turn to talk. I blabbed for so long, but now it is your turn to talk.
Well, my story isn't nearly as interesting as yours.
I'm glad you thought it was interesting because, like, to me, it feels so like long-winded and boring.
That's because you lived it, though. You're just like, I want to put that as far behind me as possible.
Like, bleh, want to bury that in the ground. Bye.
Yeah, right.
R.I.P.
Yes, please. Bye, Felicia. Like, out of here. Don't talk to me again. I mean, so I'm not really planning to transition away from stationery really at this point ever. I mean, I don't really want to be like 70 still working on invitations. That seems a little like grotesque, I feel like. But the goal, like ever since I've been a wee small child, has been to have like a storefront. And when I started Sablewood back in 2015, I had a little Etsy shop, still have that little Etsy shop, but it was very little then. It was always like, this is going to be like the first store. And like, I'm only going to do weddings until I can get my foot in the door and kind of make a name for myself. Like I kind of had a similar goal to you, not like 5 years and that's it. But it was very much like, I'm only going to do this for a few years as this type of business until I can literally walk into a room and say, someone says like, oh, it's Holly with Sablewood, or like, that's the girl that does invitations. And when I got to that point, after my hurricane of networking that I've talked to you guys about so many times at this point, I feel like, Back in 2017, when I moved to Seattle, it got to that point really quickly, like a lot faster than I was planning for it to. So I had to kind of readjust my goals a little bit.
Because that's what happens when you're intentional, everybody.
Yep, exactly.
And Holly has an amazing episode you have to listen to.
Oh, the networking. Oh my gosh. So yes, like it's very important to be intentional, but also to have flexibility with that intentional goal that you have, because I made my first product, my first I think they were like thank you cards or something back in 2017. And I finally listed them on my Etsy shop in 2018. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm starting. This is what I'm starting to kind of like go into the stationery world, not invitation stationery, but like traditional greeting card stationery. And I was like, and I'm not going to do weddings for forever. I'm going to get rid of these. But as the years went on, I just like really kind of fell in love with not necessarily weddings in general, because I think that there's a lot of, I don't know, like weddings are great and all, but it's really like the design work that I really loved, the invitation design, and kind of I really liked being the expert and learning all of these little nuanced things about invitations that I could pass on to clients. And I really loved, honestly, hearing in their voices when I said, I'm going to take your invitations to the mail for you and mail them, and then being like, oh my God, thank you. And like, I love that. And I like realized eventually that I don't really want to give that up anytime in the near future. Like it's not even on the radar for that to be not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And I know that isn't for everybody, because weddings are like super stressful. And there's a lot, like you said, Elisabeth, of you got to take clients' really terrible ideas and work with them. And I think that 18-month thing also applies to designs, but in reverse.
Okay.
Like I get people reaching out about an invitation suite that I designed for a styled shoot back in 2018 that is just now becoming like the popular thing with like the arch top and everything. And they're like, oh my God, I have to have this. I'm like, I am so over this. It has been 4 years of this arch top. Why are we still talking about this?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it totally works that way with weddings. So you have to like be prepared to kind of really like hang on to that trend for a long time. And if you're not in that mind space, then like weddings are not for you. And I don't know, I guess I kind of realized that once I got to a certain point in my business, like I don't necessarily have to follow those trends. I could kind of make my own, and it's made things a lot easier and kind of made that stationary journey a little easier to swallow, I guess. Like I can stick with this as long as I don't have to do like brown and teal together in an invitation. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, please don't ask me to pull burlap into anything or anything like that.
Yes, exactly.
But I have found that, even though this big dream of mine to have a storefront or at least like a stationary business that's separate from weddings is still the goal, it's like, it's such a weird mindset shift. Like, I really like how weddings are kind of once you work with a client for their invites and maybe their day of stuff, you're just done. Like great, bless you, like go out into the world and enjoy being married. But when you're doing products, you want people to keep coming back. So you have to build different relationships with them. Yeah. And it's almost like networking with planners or other wedding industry professionals. Like you have to become friends with people or they're just going to forget about you. So it's a weird sort of brain transition that I had to make to see like, is this even going to be cool for me? Because I'm very introverted. It's like, I love all of the friendships that I made in the wedding industry and that I have. And I love all of my customers and my clients. It's just kind of thinking about how can I serve more people, even if I don't like agree with who they are as people or like what they're doing or whatever. Like that's the kind of mindset that you have to then put yourself into when you become like a product-based business, because you don't get to pick and choose your clients anymore at that point. Yeah. So I don't know. This is like totally tangent that I just went down, but
no, I like all of it. It's really good to give people a different perspective, especially flexing your muscle when it's a lot to flex your muscle for two different strategies within a business.
Yeah. Cause they are very, very different strategies. Like I had written down in my notes that like when you are doing invitations, it lasts, 6 months to a year. But that's like very on track with a wedding, like you're building towards something. With like a product launch, you have to say like right now I'm behind on my Christmas products. It's April. Like why should I be thinking about Christmas in April? Christmas was 4 months ago. I shouldn't be thinking about that. But like with products, you do. So it sucks all the joy from the holidays and big events like this, because by the time Christmas rolls around, you're just like, ugh, I hate this. I've seen way too much green and red to like, they could last me the rest of my life.
Right. It's Christmas all year round, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Like as soon as Christmas is over, you've got to start thinking about next year's Christmas. And with product design, you have to like always kind of be ahead, like a step ahead of the curve. So you can't just rely on last year's trends to create products. You have to be like on your toes constantly and say like, well, I don't know what everybody else is going to make this year, but I think Santa's going to be a big deal, you know?
Yes.
Like, yeah, you have to like decide on your own business what's going to be the great thing, rather than with weddings, people come to you and they say like, well, my color theme is rose gold and silver. And you're like, oh, okay, like, I guess I can work with that. You know, it's very passive, whereas product design is very active. So it is like very, very different mindsets. And I encourage anybody that wants to do both to really like stop and think about what you're doing, because it's a lot. I mean,
it is a lot. It's funny because people are like, oh, these go hand in hand. They're actually wildly different. They have one thing in common, like paper, and only part of my products are paper, you know?
Yep. Wildly different. I love that. They are wildly different.
They are.
Yes. I mean, it is a different creative muscle that you get to flex. Like you said, it's, you know, weddings are very stressful for the most part, you know, because you've got a hard deadline, and products are more like, like this is the date I'd like to have this out. As long as I haven't promised anybody this, then I can just release it whenever. But, you know, it is very also, I think it hurts a lot more product design than weddings from like a, do people like this kind of standpoint? Because when you're working on people's invitations, like you can always chalk up the final design to whatever the client gave you. Like, well, I didn't really like that really to begin with. I did my best, but like, it's not really my jam. Versus products where you're like, oh, I spent 6 days like designing this wrapping paper and nobody bought it. And now I'm sitting on like $800 worth of product and nobody liked it. Like, I'm going to go cry about it. Like, it's a very personal feeling.
Yes. And I was going to say too, that it seems like, your favorite child is never everyone else's.
Yes.
You're like, I love this. I'm so excited. I put it out there and there's crickets. And you make something that you're like, okay, this is kind of like the status quo subpar, and it's flying off the shelves. And you're like, well, that's just annoying. Or, you know, Cammie's biggest thing is that she continues to keep these watercolor paintings of cities around that she's had for years.
Since the beginning.
Since the beginning, that she looks at and she's like, oh, this is just, it's so cringe. You know, that doesn't even look like how I paint anymore, but they sell so well. She's like, I couldn't get rid of them. They sell so well. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I've talked to you both about this on the podcast before, about how much I hate keychains. Like, I hate packaging keychains so much. And I get like 2 or 3 orders for keychains every day. Just like, like I love them, but I'm like sitting there just like, grr, as I'm packaging these things. So like, you have to think about these things when you're making products or wedding invitations, even. Like, it's the same, that in general is kind of the same mindset. Like, try not to get involved with anything that you're going to hate, because then it's just going to be like pulling teeth every time you do it. But like, again, total tangent, but I think the whole like overreaching theme of what I've been saying this whole time is that I've always thought of Sablewood as just like a stationery shop, but kind of along the way I fell in love with weddings, and like I don't want to let them go. And so the future is really, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a mix of the two in some way that I'm still working on. It's like work in progress, and it always will be.
Yeah. Are you publicly sharing the last bullet point that you wrote down? I wasn't sure.
It hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay.
So I'm probably gonna hold off on that news, but there might be something big coming in the future. I'm very excited about.
You can come back and we'll have more to talk about. Like,
I
do want to have you
so
back.
much more.
This isn't like truly the end, guys, even though this is like the end of the 3 months that Holly has stepped in. Like, I know that Holly will be back. Absolutely. Yes. To talk about so many more things.
Yeah, we have lots to talk about, the three of us. I'm sure we could talk for years and years.
Yes, I know. It's true because like Holly and I, when we're prepping for these episodes, we're normally talking before we actually record and after we actually record, you know? And sometimes we're saying things where I'm like, dang it, we should be recording right now. This is so good.
We'll just do an off-the-cuff one next time and just record one of our phone calls.
Yeah. Then I have to watch what I say, though. That's no fun.
Yeah. Wait, wasn't there a funny story you were going to tell us? I feel like from last week or...
Last week. Oh my gosh, Holly. Oh boy. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you remembered. Okay. All right. Well, let's back up a little bit to say that Holly and I are recording these episodes like on a Monday when we had scheduled to record them on a Thursday, but our stupid podcasting platform, Zencaster, was not cooperating.
Not at all.
So we were able to get the Q and Cake episode done. And then after that, it just kept breaking up. We couldn't hear each other. We couldn't record anything. And I said, you know what, Holly, let's take 30 minutes. You go have lunch. I'm going to go like walk around outside and try to like cool off because I'm so frustrated with technology right now.
About this.
Still working up about this. And, you know, it's been beautiful in Georgia, but it's still on the verge of, you know, most days I'm wearing like leggings and a t-shirt, you know, it's not quite like full blown shorts weather yet. And I just love my leggings so much. And when I wash my leggings, I do it in a very specific way. I like wash a load of them together on Delicate and then I hang them all to dry. Well, I had left my leggings a little longer to dry this time in the bathroom. And I'm not quite sure at the point at when you guys will know what I'm talking about in a second about what happened or when it happened. But I'm outside like walking around. I have some tea or something and I'm just trying to enjoy the fresh air and not punch my computer. And I like reach down to scratch my butt and there's a lump in my pants, like by my left butt cheek. And I was like, what in the world? What in the world is that? It's inside my leggings. So, you know, of course, I'm in my own yard. So, of course, I like reach in there to like get it and toss it out into the grass. You guys, it was a cockroach. It was a small one, but it was a cockroach nonetheless. And it was also very dead because it had met its death by butt because I for sure had sat on it at some point earlier in the day. And it was smashed between my leggings and my skin. And so when I come back,
I'm crying again.
I came back from the podcast break and I was like, Holly, you're never going to guess what happened to me. There was a cockroach in my pants. This is only something that would happen to me. And thankfully, it was small and it was already very, very dead at that point. And I just didn't give my mind the ability to like wander any farther than that. I didn't need to know. But I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. I had told Holly last week, I was like, is this something that I tell people on the podcast? And yes, I think it is because
yes, absolutely.
Never be embarrassed. If you think something strange happened to you, I'm sure it's happened to somebody else at some point.
Oh my gosh, yes. We spent some time looking up like other weird things that have happened to people. And,
on Reddit.
That is not the weirdest thing.
Yeah, not the weirdest place people have found bugs.
Yeah, like on sandwiches or
which is worse, shoes. far worse. Like honestly, for me, like having a hair in my food is far worse than this.
Gross.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I have a visceral reaction to that. Whereas like a cockroach in my leggings, I mean, whatever.
And it was dead, so like that's fine.
But you should, I kind of do wish that I could, you know what? I should go back and look at the Ring camera footage because I probably was close enough that it like caught that moment when I like realized it. So I'll have to send it to you. I wonder if I was like close enough that you could see what I'm like doing.
Oh my gosh, I hope so, because that would be hilarious.
But I
just
feel
imagine the look on your face.
Right. It was mostly just like, I don't know, probably RBF for the most part, because I was just like staring at it, like trying to understand like what was actually happening. And I told Will, of course, too. And he was like, "Are you serious? Like that is so gross."
So something that would happen to you.
Yep. So something that would happen to me. But I do feel like that story is like the perfect way for us to like end our last episode. Hopefully it was worth it, you guys. Hopefully you thought it was as funny as we did, because I thought it was pretty freaking funny.
I clearly did. I'm still crying. I think tears away.
But to do a little bit of housekeeping, obviously, you guys, Holly has been wonderful. So please visit bizbirthdaybash.com/Holly to see her referral link if you want to join the A to Z directory, and to see her Instagram and website and where you can find her, because you got to go support her, buy some of her resources and products. The letter, what is that one called again? The USPS mailing template.
My mailing template, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Buy Holly's mailing template, the product, and then come and buy our digital USPS mailing agreement, and you will be set. Set. Things
those I use every
together.
day.
Yeah, those two belong together.
It's like a bundle if I've ever heard of one before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But we love all you guys, and leave us a rating and review, please. Also, the other thing is that if you've been listening to these episodes, I would love it if you guys slid into Holly's DMs and just let her know that you appreciate her. It would really mean the world to me and to Cammie, I'm sure. I know Cammie's so grateful too.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you, Elisabeth, over the last few weeks, months, and really like making new friends through the podcast. It's been so great. I'm so honored. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, well. All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Excuse me. I do think after this episode, the goal is that next week Cammie will be back with us. Things always could change and shift. You know, it is hard to plan things with a newborn, but that is the goal for next time. So we will talk to all of you guys soon.
All right.
Say bye last time, Holly.
Oh, bye.
Bye. So long. Farewell. I'll be the same tomorrow. Are those the words?
I don't know. I haven't seen that in forever.
Adieu. To you and you and you. Goodbye. Goodbye. And I can't hit that last note, you guys, so I'm not going to try. Goodbye. Hey guys, we just wanted to hop in and talk about one of our amazing resources, the A to Z directory. All of us have thought at some point, how did she do that, or how did she make that? And maybe you don't know where to start or how the heck to produce this amazing product you've dreamt up.
Well, the A to Z directory is the missing puzzle piece in your biz, you guys, seriously. So it's built in the form of a yearly membership, and it's your one-stop shop for finding suppliers and vendors for all the things. Literally where to print everything from custom invitations, greeting cards, mugs, koozies, acrylic printing, letterpress, custom ribbon. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it literally goes from A to Z. From acrylic printers to zipper pouches, we have it in the A to Z directory.
We want to help all of you search less and create more with this list of 300 plus vendors and suppliers. Don't worry, they're very organized. It's not going to be overwhelming and confusing when you join. And this membership also includes access to a private Facebook community. It's incredibly active and involved. And if you need a question answered fast, that is definitely the place to go.
Yeah, our Facebook group really is the best. You guys, everyone is so helpful in there. And we're in there too, answering questions you guys might have. So it's a great way to get access to us and ask us things without sliding into our DMs. So we're more likely to answer you in the Facebook group, just saying. Anyway, also in the Facebook group, this is new for 2020 and we're really excited about it. We are hosting monthly Power Hour Q&A sessions that are live, and these are only available to our A to Z directory members. So you can hop in with us live and ask us all your burning questions in real time and just hang out with us every month. And we do these at different times so you can actually be there live, and the replays are always available in the Facebook group for members.
This resource is priced at $147 a year, which honestly is extremely affordable and is full of so many benefits, such as exclusive vendor coupons for members only. And we would love to have you guys join. Seriously, it's kind of like our family and our tribe. So visit bizbirthdaybash.com/directory to sign up today and use coupon code podcast2020 to receive $20 off your first year. That's podcast, all caps, 2020 for $20 off your first year.
We can't wait to see you in the Facebook group.